The Council's demand, the Galactic Council chamber, was a place of cold light and silent power. Its walls rose high, like the inside of a fortress, polished metal reflecting the glow of hundreds of alien banners. Each banner stood for a species that had sworn loyalty to the Council, each one a reminder of the long rule that had stretched for thousands of years. But this day, the banners did not bring pride. They brought unease, because one name was spoken again and again, a name that had been quiet for centuries. Humanity, the Council speaker, a towering alien with skin like stone and eyes that burned like fire, struck his staff against the floor. "The silence of Earth has lasted too long," he declared, his voice echoing across the chamber. They were given exile, they were given shame, and they were given centuries to accept their place. Yet they do not answer, they do not kneel, they do not speak, and now they must. Murmurs rose among the gathered species. Some laughed, calling humans broken ghosts of the past. Others whispered warnings, reminding their neighbors of old stories. Stories of wars where humans fought with fury beyond reason. The silence of humanity was not the silence of death. They feared. It was the silence of something waiting. An elder from the Chorus species lifted his voice, his long tendrils trembling. "If they have been silent for centuries, perhaps they are gone," he said. "Why provoke the dead?" But the speaker's staff slammed again. "No, the humans remain. They were seen, shadows at the edge of trade routes. Whispers in the void. They hide, they watch, they wait. And this council will demand their answer." The chamber darkened as a vast star map appeared above the council floor. It showed the galaxy, and in its center a single blue star, the Sol system, once home to mankind. The speaker's voice thundered. "We send envoys. We send fleets if we must. Humanity will answer, whether in peace or in fire." The words rippled through the chamber like a storm. Some delegates nodded with approval, eager to crush the forgotten species. Others sat in silence, unease heavy in their hearts, because there was something terrifying in silence. Every other species had bent the knee to the council. Every other world had cried, bargained, or begged. Only Earth had vanished, saying nothing, giving nothing, hiding their fate behind the black curtain of space. On a distant station orbiting the Council's core world, soldiers prepared the first envoy. It was not a mission of peace, it was a test, a demand wrapped in threats. The fleet was small, but armed, its ships dark and sharp like the teeth of a predator. Its orders were simple. Find humanity, call them out, and if they do not answer, strike. In the great chamber, debates turned bitter. A voice from the Ythrace shouted, "You are fools. Silence is not weakness. Silence is a weapon." But his warning was drowned in laughter. "Humans were cast out," said another. "They have no fleets, no allies. They are dust." Still, the Yth delegate lowered his gaze and muttered, "Dust can choke, dust can blind, dust can rise into a storm." For centuries, the galaxy had forgotten Earth. Children grew up hearing only half-true legends. Merchants whispered of strange ships that appeared for seconds and vanished without trace. Pirates told tales of human eyes watching from the dark, but nothing was ever proven, and the council laughed at such stories. Now, the silence had grown too heavy. The council could not bear it anymore. For power fears most the enemy that does not bow, and so the command was given. The galaxy would demand an answer. Humanity would be dragged into the light, on the edge of known space. The envoy fleet moved through the void, its commanders confident, their weapons armed. They believed they would find a broken people, desperate for mercy. They expected nothing more than ruins, silence, and surrender. But in the deep dark of space, beyond the reach of the council's pride, something stirred. A signal pulsed once, faint and cold, then vanished. A ship moved, its design unknown, its signature unmistakable, human. The council did not yet know, but the silence was ending. And when humanity replied, the galaxy would never be the same. A forgotten silence. Envoy fleet cut through the void, its engines burning bright against the endless dark. Every soldier aboard carried the same thought. This would be easy. The Council had ordered them to find humanity, to demand their answer. And who could resist? The Council's voice, but far away, whispers told a different story. For the silence of humanity was not a silence of death. It was something heavier, something deliberate, and many feared what it meant. In the archives of the Council, buried under layers of forgotten records, old reports still existed. They told of the day humanity was cast out. The Council had punished them, accusing Earth of pride, of rebellion, of standing against laws that no species dared to break. The punishment was exile. The Council had expected begging, tears, submission, but humanity gave nothing. They walked away from the stars, their last words cold and sharp, and then silence. That silence lasted for centuries. New empires rose, old wars burned out, generations passed, but Earth did not return. Some believed the humans had destroyed themselves. Others said their home world had frozen into dust, yet the silence was never empty. Traders swore that strange ships sometimes appeared at the edge of systems, then vanished. Pirates spoke of being hunted by unseen weapons, and in the darkest corners of space, miners told tales of human voices carried on old radio waves. Every story was dismissed as rumor, but deep down, the fear remained on the Council. World of Talaris, young cadets were taught a different version of the truth. Their instructors told them humans were reckless, violent, unable to obey. They were given exile for their crimes, and now they are nothing. Yet one cadet asked a dangerous question. If they are nothing, why does the Council still fear? Their silence. The classroom went quiet. No one answered. Back in the Envoy fleet, a probe was launched toward the Sol system. Its task was simple: observe, record, return. The crew expected to see ruins, maybe empty cities, the ghost of a forgotten people, but the probe never returned. Its last transmission was a single blurred image, a shape in the dark, massive, metallic, alive. The signal cut off. The fleet commander dismissed it as error, but the soldiers whispered, what if the silence was never weakness? Meanwhile, across the galaxy, old allies of humanity stirred. Tiny species once protected by human fleets remembered the wars of long ago. They remembered human soldiers who fought until their last breath. They remembered promises, words that echoed through history. We fight not to rule, but to stand. Free. These species had kept their silence too, hiding under the Council's shadow. But now, as news spread that the Council was hunting humans, hope flickered again. Inside the Council chamber, voices clashed like thunder. Their silence insults us, shouted one delegate. They will break like all the rest, said another, but an elder spoke slowly, his voice carrying fear. You think silence is nothing, but silence is the deepest sound you cannot hear. What grows in the dark until it is too late? The speaker silenced the chamber with a strike of his staff. He declared, the probe was lost to malfunction. There is nothing there but ashes. But behind his words, his eyes betrayed unease. For even the speaker knew humanity had always been different. Their silence was not surrender. It was a promise, waiting to be fulfilled. On the edge of Sol, the Envoy fleet moved closer. Their scanners reached for Earth, expecting ruins. Instead, their systems glitched. Strange signals scrambled their readings. For a brief second, one crewman swore he saw a blue planet glowing against the void, alive and whole. Then the screen went black. Alarms blared across the ship. Something was interfering, something strong, something human. The silence was breaking, and with it, the galaxy's illusion of safety. The Envoy ships did not yet know, but they were no longer hunters. They were prey. The first reply, the Envoy fleet drifted near the edge of the Sol system. Its captains were growing restless. Scanners showed static. Comms were scrambled. Navigation systems glitched. Every report was the same: something was there, watching. But invisible, the fleet commander, Admiral Torkin, stood tall on his bridge. His crew whispered about the probe that had vanished, about the ghost signal that carried the outline of a massive ship. But the admiral silenced them with a wave of his claw. "Do not be afraid of shadows," he growled. "Humanity is dust, and dust cannot fight the stars." Still, the silence pressed down on them like a weight. Every hour, every minute, the empty black seemed more alive. And then it came, a voice, not a scream, not a cry, but a single voice carried across every frequency. It cut through the static, clear and sharp. The bridge crew froze as the translation software struggled to capture the words. But they needed no translation. The voice was human. "We hear you." The words were calm, almost quiet, but they shook the fleet like a thunderclap. Every soldier stopped breathing. Every captain felt the air leave their lungs. For centuries, the galaxy had waited, had wondered if humanity was gone. And now, with 3 words, they knew. Humanity had never been gone. Humanity had been listening. The admiral slammed his fist against the console. "Trace it," he ordered. "Find their position. Fire if you must." But the crew's screens showed nothing. The signal had come from everywhere, from nowhere. It was not a transmission. It was a warning across the galaxy. The council chambers erupted as the signal reached them. Delegates shouted in disbelief. "The humans live," one cried. Another hissed. 3 words, only 3. What do they mean? But an elder whispered, "They mean everything. They mean the silence is over." In a distant mining colony on the edge of council space, workers gathered around a cracked radio. They had been slaves under council law for generations. When they heard the words, they cheered. Some cried, for they knew what it meant. The humans had returned, and perhaps freedom would follow. Back in the Envoy fleet, alarms blared again. A second signal came, but this time it was not words. It was numbers. Coordinates written in ancient code. The code was old, older than most of the council itself. It was the language of human war fleets. The admiral stared at the message on the screen. "Coordinates," he muttered. "An invitation." The crew trembled. Why would humans reveal a location? Why invite their enemies to them? "Unless," whispered one officer, "unless they wanted us to come." The council received the same coordinates. The speaker rose in the chamber, his stone-like face unshaken. "This is their answer," he declared. "They want us to come, so we will. We will show them the power of the council. We will remind them they are nothing." But not every delegate agreed. A Yith elder leaned forward, his voice low. "You think they are nothing, but they were silent for centuries. You do not understand what silence can build." No one listened. The speaker's command was already given. Fleets were being prepared. War drums echoing across the stars. And yet, in the void where the Envoy fleet drifted, one more thing happened. The voice returned, just once more. Calm, steady, human. "You wanted our answer. You will have it." The signal cut, the stars went silent again. But the silence no longer felt empty. It felt alive, heavy, waiting. The Envoy fleet stood frozen. Every captain, every soldier, every crew member knew the truth now. Humanity had spoken. And the galaxy's balance was about to break. The gathering storm, the coordinates, had been sent. Every fleet in the Envoy stared at the numbers glowing on their screens. It was not a threat, not an attack, not a plea. It was an invitation. The admiral of the Envoy fleet gathered his captains. They spoke in hushed tones, their voices filled with unease. "If the humans wanted to fight," one captain said, "they would have struck already." "Then why call us?" another asked. "Why show us where they are?" The admiral's eyes narrowed. "Because they want us to come," he said. "And I intend to show them the council's strength." But in the shadows of space, Humanity was already moving. Hidden stations lit up in silence. Old networks of satellites woke from their long sleep. Engines that had not burned in centuries flickered alive. The storm was rising, and no one in the Envoy fleet could see it. Deep in the ruins of Luna Base, once thought abandoned, vast hangars opened. Inside lay ships unlike any seen in the Council's age. Sharp, angular, built for speed and fire. Ships that had been hidden for generations, waiting for this moment. One by one, they rose into the black sky, vanishing into the void. On Earth itself, forests grew over old scars of war. Oceans glittered with peace, but beneath the calm surface lay something far greater. Cities underground, alive with human voices. Children running through steel corridors. Elders teaching in hidden halls. Humanity had not died. They had grown stronger. For centuries, they had watched the galaxy, studied its fleets, stolen its secrets, learned its weakness. While the Council grew arrogant, humanity grew ready. And now the storm was gathering. The Council chambers shook with debate. Some called for war, demanding the total destruction of humanity. Others hesitated, voices trembling with doubt. Their silence was long, too long, one delegate warned. They were not wasting time, they were preparing. But the speaker silenced all. Our fleets will crush them before they rise, he declared, and the banners of war were raised once more. Across the galaxy, massive armadas gathered, ships from 100 species, their weapons gleaming, their confidence unshaken. They believed. They were unstoppable. They believed humanity would kneel as all others had. But they did not know. Back in the Envoy fleet, the coordinates led them closer. Stars shifted as their engines pushed forward, yet the silence pressed heavier with each passing hour. No resistance, no signal, no sign of panic, only waiting. Then, at the edge of the Sol system, they saw it. Not Earth, not Mars, not ruins. A single ship. It floated alone, massive and silent, its hull dark and scarred. The Envoy ships scanned it, but their systems failed. The readings were wrong, too large, too strong, too old. And yet, unmistakably human, on the bridge of the Envoy flagship, fear crept through the crew. One whispered, "Why only one ship?" Another replied, "Because one is enough." The human vessel powered its lights, a glow running across its hull like waking fire. Its name burned into the dark in ancient human letters. Defiance. The Admiral stared at it, his voice shaking. "This is their answer," he muttered. But before he could give an order, a signal came again. Not a voice this time, but a symbol. The old emblem of Earth, the mark of humanity. It shone across every screen, every channel, every star. A silent declaration. The Envoy fleet trembled. They had asked for humanity's reply, and humanity had begun to speak. Far behind them, across the galaxy, the Council fleets prepared for war. But here, in the dark of Sol, the storm had already started, for the Defiance was not alone. From the black void, more shapes began to appear. One ship, then 2, then 10, then dozens, rising like ghosts from centuries of silence. The hidden fleet of Earth, awake. The storm was gathering, and the galaxy was about to learn the cost of demanding an answer. The shattered illusion. The Council's armadas filled the stars. Thousands of ships, banners of 100 species, their engines blazing bright. To the galaxy, it looked unstoppable. To the Council, it was already victory in the Grand Chamber. Of Talaris, the speaker raised his hand. "Our fleets will erase the humans," he declared. "They broke the laws. They defied our will. And now they will be nothing but memory." Delegates cheered, pounding their fists against stone tables. But far above them, in the cold dark, the illusion of power was beginning to crack, for at the edge of Sol, the Envoy fleet still faced the Defiance. The old human warship hovered in silence. It did not move, it did not fire, it only waited. Admiral Torkin tried to keep control. He barked orders, commanding his ships to surround the human vessel. But as the envoy moved, strange things began to happen. Engines cut out without warning. Weapons froze mid-charge. Sensors turned blind. One by one, the envoy ships began to fail. And still, the Defiance had not fired a single shot on the bridge. Panic grew. "What is happening?" a captain shouted. "Our systems are blind," another cried. The admiral gritted his teeth. "Humans are using tricks. Shadows, interference," he growled. But deep down, even he felt it. This was no trick. This was power. Then, the human voice returned, calm, steady, carried across every channel. "You wanted our answer. Here it is." At that moment, the Defiance moved, not fast, not violent, but with purpose. It drifted forward, and as it passed, one of the envoy ships shattered. No fire, no blast, just silence. Its hull cracked, its lights died, and it was gone, destroyed by something unseen. The envoy fleet screamed in panic. The admiral shouted for retreat, but the space around them bent. The humans had built something far beyond council understanding. Gravity fields twisted, signals jammed, weapons useless, and in that storm, the Defiance stood unbroken, back in the council chamber. News of the envoy's collapse arrived. Delegates screamed, voices clashing. "This is impossible," one shouted. "Humans cannot match us," another cried. But the elder Yith leaned forward again, his eyes sharp. "You believed the silence was weakness," he said. "It was not. It was a forge." Meanwhile, in hidden colonies across the galaxy, species who once fought beside humans began to stir. They whispered of the stories their ancestors told, of human fleets that never surrendered, of human soldiers who fought until the last breath, and now those stories were alive again. The humans had returned, and the Council's illusion of control was breaking. On the Defiance, human officers stood tall, their voices calm. Captain Elena Reyes, her eyes cold and bright, gave a single order: send the message to every star. And with that, the reply of humanity spread across the galaxy. Not words, but images, the sight of the envoy. Fleet collapsing. The shadow of the Defiance standing alone, and a symbol, the emblem of Earth. It burned into every screen, every world, every mind. A reminder, humanity had not been destroyed. Humanity had been waiting. The galaxy trembled. On worlds under council rule, slaves looked to the sky with hope. On stations ruled by fear, whispers of rebellion grew louder. And on the council homeworld, fear settled deep. For the illusion of their control was gone. Shattered in a single moment, Admiral Torkin's flagship limped away. Engines burning, he stared at the dark behind. Him, where the Defiance still waited, his voice was low, broken. "They are not dust, they are fire." And fire was spreading. The storm was no longer gathering. It had begun. The rising fire, the envoy fleet limped back across the stars. Broken and silent, the Council had demanded an answer, and they had received it. But the reply was not silence nor surrender. It was fire across the galaxy. The message of the Defiance spread like a storm. Every colony, every outpost, every ship saw the image of a single human warship standing unbroken. They saw the Council's proud envoy crumbling without a shot. And whispers turned to shouts. The galaxy now knew. Humanity had returned in the slave mines of Durek 4. Chains rattled as workers gathered around a stolen receiver. They watched the emblem of Earth glowing on the screen. One worker raised his fist, voice trembling. "If the humans fight, then so will we." And the guards who once seemed invincible suddenly looked weak. On the Council homeworld, the speaker raged in fury. "Crush this rebellion before it begins," he roared. "Send every fleet, burn every hidden world." But fear spread even in the chamber. Delegates who once shouted for war now whispered doubts. What if the humans are stronger than before? One asked, what if we cannot stop them? The speaker ignored them. He ordered fleets to mobilize, to prepare for a war that would silence humanity forever. But already it was too late. The rising fire could not be contained on Earth. Deep beneath mountains where the Council believed nothing lived, the hidden cities of humanity stirred. Children watched as massive war machines were prepared, old. Soldiers stood in silence as the banners of Earth were raised once more, and in command halls, voices spoke with calm certainty. The galaxy thinks we are few. Captain Elena Reyes said, they will learn we are many. From secret bases on distant moons, ships lifted into the void. From hidden fortresses buried in asteroid belts, weapons charged from deep oceans where submarines had slept for. Centuries, new fleets rose. Humanity had built in silence. Now they were ready. But the humans did not move alone. Across the stars, others began to rise. The Vainer, a species broken by the Council long ago, painted their ships with the human emblem. The Kreth, once scattered and enslaved, sent messengers to Earth offering their blades. World by world, system by system, voices joined. The silence of centuries had ended. Now the galaxy roared. The Council tried to stop it. They sent fleets to crush uprisings, to burn colonies. But everywhere they went, they found resistance. Not only humans, but others inspired by them. For the humans had not only returned, they had lit a fire in every heart that longed for freedom. Back on the Defiance, Captain Reyes stood before her crew. Her voice was steady, her eyes cold. They thought we were gone, she said. They thought silence meant death, but silence was our shield. And now we will show them what we forged inside it. Her words carried beyond the ship. They echoed through hidden channels, spread by human hands across the galaxy. Every rebel, every fighter, every prisoner heard the same call. It was not only war, it was something greater. It was the rising fire of hope. In the mines, the slaves broke their chains. In the skies, pirate bands turned their weapons against the Council. In the cities, whispers of rebellion became marshes. And always, the humans stood at the center, not saviors, but warriors who had chosen to rise again. The Speaker of the Council tried to speak once more. His words echoed through the chamber, but no one listened. The illusion of control had shattered in Part 5. Now, in Part 6, the Council felt something worse. They felt fear, for the fire had risen, and it would not stop until it burned across every star. The final answer the galaxy burned with rebellion. The Council's fleets scattered, chasing uprisings they could no longer control. World after world slipped from their grip, and at the center of it all stood humanity. The Defiance led the way, its shadow a symbol across the stars. Every ship that joined the rebellion carried the emblem of Earth painted on its hull. From the broken Kreth, from the scarred Vainer, from slaves who had never flown free before, fleets gathered, and in silence, they followed the humans. The storm was no longer gathering. The storm had come. The Council gathered its greatest fleet, 10,000 ships, weapons blazing, engines roaring. They met at the edge of Sol, the place where it had all begun. The Speaker's voice rang across every channel, filled with pride and hate. You fall, humans. This rebellion dies today. But on the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Elena Reyes did not tremble. She looked at her crew, at the fleets waiting behind them. Her voice was steady. They demanded our answer. Today, we give it to them. The battle began. The Council's armada charged forward, a wall of fire and steel. Their weapons lit the void. Their numbers filled the stars, but the humans had prepared for centuries. The hidden fleet of Earth moved as one. Their ships were faster, sharper, built with knowledge stolen and forged in silence. For every 10 Council ships that fired, only one human ship fell. And for every human ship lost, 50 Council vessels burned. The Allies fought with fury. The Kreth rammed their ships into enemy cruisers. The Vaynir unleashed weapons long banned by the Council. Even the smallest rebel fighters struck like knives, tearing holes in the armada. The Council's order collapsed, their formations broke, and in the center of the chaos, the Defiance advanced. Admiral Torkin, still scarred from the Envoy disaster, commanded the Council flagship. His voice shook as he saw the human vessel cutting through his fleet. "They are only one world," he whispered. "How can one world stand against us all?" But deep in his heart, he knew it was not only one world anymore. It was the fire of every world the Council had crushed. Now burning together, the Defiance reached the flagship. Its guns roared, tearing the Council vessel apart. The blast shook the stars, and in that moment, the speaker's voice vanished forever. The Council fleet, leaderless and broken, scattered into the void. Silence fell. The humans had not only survived, they had won. Captain Reyes stood tall on the bridge. Her voice carried across every channel, every ally, every rebel. "The Council demanded our answer," she said, "and this is it." The image of the burning Council fleet filled every screen. The emblem of Earth blazed beside it, a message not only of victory, but of something greater, a promise. Humanity would never kneel again. Humanity would never be silent again. And to every world that longed for freedom, humanity gave the same. Words, "Stand with us, and you will be free." Across the galaxy, cheers rose. On the mines of Durek IV, chains were shattered. On the frozen plains of Kreth, flags of rebellion flew. On the Vaynir homeworld, bells rang for the first time in centuries. The Council was broken, the galaxy was reborn, and at the heart of it, the humans stood unyielding. Their silence had been their weapon. Their fire had been their answer. And now, in the final moment, the galaxy understood humanity was not only back, humanity was forever.